That's Richard.
Dude, I saw one of the audience comments.
He was trying
What?
to convince me to drive him.
Names that make Jesus happy.
Okay,
I didn't notice that.
yeah, but
I didn't notice that at first.
that wouldn't work.
This is bad. It's like getting schooled.
Yeah.
Feel it. It's actually a full back of that.
We got 3 gas on my yes. All day.
I saw this.
Why do you call me a hit?
I don't know what it is.
It's not that.
It's very.
I can find
Oh.
it. Snapchat.
Oh my
No.
God. Do that.
Hayden, clean up every piece of crumb on the floor now. You're in trouble.
I want to drink my son. Go then drink it.
I know, okay, so I remember, okay, I remember Maggie's girlfriend
Right there.
from when we did a.
All right, Will. Do you want Pacific Cooler or Pacific Cooler?
What?
Which one of these do you want?
No, he didn't get one.
Oh, we're in.
Because he had a Diet Coke. And so I made him wait until everybody else had a Capri Sun. Who else got? Did all the Capri Suns go? Okay, good.
Joe, did you get to see Pedro being Parker Snowman?
No, I saw the picture on your Snapchat.
You follow me on Snapchat?
I have Snapchat, but I don't use it for anything.
I think you and I are friends.
You saw my snowman in me.
Like, I did.
I haven't checked Snap. I don't check Snapchat.
Like, if she did the.
Let me see.
It's weird.
Well, I have like 50 cookers trying to show me dudes now. So I gotta go through. I gotta go through all of them. I don't want any.
Yeah, I'm friends with you.
Go Allison that.
No.
What
Yeah.
is it?
Oh, that's gross. Mm-mm. That was gross. It was Dr. Pimple Popper. That was an ad for Dr. Pimple Popper.
Ew. A what?
There you go. That's what you want. Well, that's not it.
Do you have Snapchat?
I do.
Oh my gosh, not that. For sure, please.
Hey, that was me. He's on my.
That was his
story.
dad. That was her dad. Being a dad.
That will be me as that.
Oh my gosh. Push me over.
Push her over. Push her over.
No. God. I don't want to push her over.
This thing is. It just gave you a picture. Yeah.
My phone's dead.
Not Kratos can't. Ah, what kind of pictures?
Poor Allison. Y'all made Allison go sit by Hay.
I don't like
Hayden, are you gonna get to play basketball this week?
Why not? It's just something on, dude.
I'm gonna just put.
Y'all know who you're playing Tuesday? Oh, y'all beat them. That's what I'm saying. Hey, everybody. Crystal's at home recuperating. Y'all say hi to Crystal.
Hi.
Hey y'all.
And then, oh, did you see them over there? Tell them hi. She says hey. Anyway.
Relax. That is a frog. You can't even call that one a frog.
What was that?
Over the main that I said.
Oh. All right. How many of y'all are planning on going to camp?
More than likely.
I am.
Anne Marie,
What?
going to camp?
Yeah, I'm correct. No, not
Okay.
good. She doesn't know right.
This will be the year that Parker goes to camp.
Yeah, I get that.
All right.
Really, I didn't think. When it sounds like the plan was to escape.
But yeah, which is a big surprise because usually when Green Mark's closed, South Side's open. Neither does South Mission have like when Clinton, every time that Clinton closed for something, oh no, South Side.
All right. So Southside is a virtual day. Is Greenbrier a virtual day?
Good.
Greenbrier, yeah. Jacob's a go to work day. I hope at least.
Welcome to the Krusty Krab, not chicken order.
Um,
Krusty Krab.
All right. Hey, listen. Very important. Camp. If you are planning on going to camp, or if somebody that normally hasn't been here, or but they're wanting to go to camp, they need to sign up because camp. I don't know how full camp is allowed to be. I think it's like 50% capacity. So like if it's 185 at most that we can have at camp, about 92.5 people can go to camp if it's like half of that. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's, but anyway, all that to say is you need to register. Okay. The dates for Cold Springs camp, they are youth camp. Excuse me, hold on. Youth camp it's in July. Middle school camp, which doesn't really apply to any of y'all, unless you have to be in 7th grade again.
None of them apply to me.
That's July, but if you're wanting to staff or whatever, that's July 12th through the 16th. And then youth camp for everybody is June 28th through July 2nd. So it's $100 for camp. You don't have to pay. You don't have to pay when you register. If money is an issue, just talk with us and we'll work something out. We don't want money to be a reason why you can't go. Seriously, don't be like, well, I'm not going because I don't have money. Because if I find out about that, guess what? You have money to go to camp. So anyway, the only other thing that doing our group Devo. If you're not in the group Devo and you want to be, you need to let me know so I can add you. And I'm looking at doing something in March, just to get a little events. I was thinking about maybe us doing a game night to where I open up this in here. We do a couple of upfront games. We play, and then I'll have if you want to play video games, play video games. If you want to play card games or some sort of board games, you can have that too. That'll be happening sometime in March, and we'll have pizza and stuff like that. Have a good time. But with, of course, y'all know with COVID, it makes things super hard to plan very far out. But another thing I thought about doing is I know at one point the movie theaters had offered rentals, like you could rent out a whole theater. And if they still do that, I would like to see about trying to get it, go watch a movie with y'all. Would y'all be down with that?
Yes.
I think you can just pick the movie too.
Yeah, of course, we would have to abide by the rules and stuff like that. I want to talk about rules here in just a minute. Chris.
Yeah, I got two things.
What?
First thing, since they're only allowing capacity for church camp,
Yeah.
I just want to say, Hayden, you have no excuse for not being able to find your own bunk this time.
Well, literally, I told you to give me a bump, and you didn't give me a bump.
I did actually.
I'm sorry.
What happened to that, Chris?
I just got one question. Who made it like his responsibility for you to
I told him,
have?
it's okay. I won't be there till like 1:00. Give me a bump, please.
Okay.
Okay, I got you. I will get you a bump.
I did
You
not
know.
say that.
You did.
No.
You said, oh, dude, I got
Yeah.
you.
Oh, I know. See, he should have not called you. You should have called the adult. Say, hey, Richard, can you spare me? Can you save me a bunk? And I'd have been
You
like,
would just tell me to suck it
yes.
up.
I would have actually saved you a bunk.
He did send me a bump. He said an old man stole it. That's an excuse. An old man stole it.
An old man did steal
That
it.
is
It wasn't me. It wasn't me, was it? No, it was Stubbs. It was Stubbs that stole it.
Okay, second thing. I
Yeah.
got a great idea.
What?
We did a 5K.
No.
No.
I'd be down with that.
I'm taking my.
Y'all can come hang out with me. Y'all can walk at my running pace. Hey, I'm down with that. I'd be down. We've done a 5K before. We've done a 5K.
You and Chris will be the only one there.
Listen, I have not ran since I quit, since the last
That's
time.
good.
How long is
Hey.
it? You know,
3.1 miles.
I can do that.
It's easy.
I took that back.
It's not. Emery.
Okay.
Okay, I can't go to church now.
Wow.
I mean,
I have a national day competition.
I'm too old.
When is it?
Whatever day the church camp is.
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know.
Hey, that's what Alicia said.
So we did basically 22.
Did you just tell her?
I told her the date, she said you
Oh.
can't go, and I was like, why? She
Well,
said-
there's another day that you can go. There's another day that you can go.
I
if you
won't
want-
go without Noah.
Well, okay.
Somebody
We
else.
can figure out a way for you. If you want to go, we'll make it happen. I'm just saying. If
I
you
doubt
want
that's
to
gonna
go,
happen, but good luck.
if that means that I gotta recruit him so you can go, then I'll do it.
Well, no one going. Hayden, is there any airheads?
Anyway, we're gonna figure out solutions. Camp.
I don't know.
All right, Will.
So,
Y'all listen.
Since church camp's a long ways away, would there be any chance that the capacity would increase since we have vaccine rolling out?
I really don't know. That's just-
Capacity's back to 100.
Because here's the deal. They really have to go by. If I understand it correctly, and I'm
phase one, the C, no, not C, like G by this time. That's church championship, right?
well, like high risk individuals like me, people that got diabetes and those asthma, high blood pressure, heart, that stuff is not until later on in the year to where that's supposed to be to where they can get it. I've heard that allegedly everybody will have access to the vaccine by July. Of course, that's the thing is like somebody says and somebody does. Like we've had the worst rollout, we've had the fastest production to the vaccine and the worst rollout of the vaccine. It's crazy. But I don't know if because of more access to the vaccine, if and when it does happen, if it does happen before camp, I don't think that's because they have to go by health and safety guidelines. Like I think they have to go by like CDC guidelines as well as the Arkansas Department of Health guidelines. So if that changes, then yeah, I mean it could change. I'm not saying it's not. Whenever they told us, like in our chat, our chat group, whenever like Gene told us that camp was open, he said it can only be 50%. So that's all I know. Because I thought, well, what if like that? What if there's more access to the vaccine between now and then? But he had said that that's just kind of how it is. Yeah.
If this one's a real question, what if we plan on being a junior staffer or a staffer?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything of that. I don't know if they're gonna want to try to do junior staffers,
Well, last summer,
but I can find out.
like all of us were supposed to.
Yeah, there's a bunch of y'all, and then like COVID hit.
I saw the
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
because I think I sent it to, and I think I still have yours, I think, but you know, I'll be glad to write y'all a letter of recommendation.
You have to lose a recommendation.
I was gonna stop.
That's what you always had to have.
I didn't have
Well, you're the reason why we have that one. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But the thing with watching, hey, y'all listen, please. Y'all listen. The thing with like going to a movie, you know, for us, it has to be a movie that would be approved. It has to be a movie, you know, it'd be no different than when we watch movies here. So I don't know. Like I think when I was looking into it, I had asked for like a God's Not Dead movie to watch. And so I haven't heard, you know, they were like, well, okay, here's the date for this. And so I don't know if that would work. But that'll probably happen in April when we get to do it. So but March we're gonna it might be, I'm gonna try to do just one event a month, so that way I'm not trying to bombard y'all, because I know y'all got a bunch of other stuff going on too, and especially basketball and baseball. So what are you laughing at? Are you playing baseball, Hayden? You're participating. What does
Oh, no, I know.
what does that mean? Like, what do you mean?
Come to the house and I'll have you train.
That means he's not good at it. No, it's,
Yeah, we can go
Wake and
somewhere else
Ray
on the field and we'll train you to do stuff.
This little side thing for those of you that watch like stuff on Twitch. I have a Twitch channel I'm streaming, and you're welcome to follow me. Daily Planet CK.
Hey, guys.
It's like YouTube for video gamers.
If I'm on there, I promise it's gonna be quality entertainment.
Yeah. I'll probably end up streaming tonight, Fortnite. If anybody wants to play Fortnite.
And they're doing a Street Fighter crossover.
They are doing a Street Fighter crossover.
And it's really.
But anyway,
I wish they put in crossovers, just to focus on making their game better.
the game is actually really good. The only part I don't like as far as the game itself is the sand stuff. The sand stuff is just too much.
It's all bad. They need, instead of trying to collab with people, they need to just focus on
Well,
the
they're
production
a big
quality.
company.
The production quality game, it's gotten a lot better than what.
Yeah, it really has.
I need to
If you
update it.
stream Minecraft, I can guarantee your viewer count will jump.
Yeah, probably. Because of the
You
amount.
you won't catch me playing Minecraft.
I'll beat your house.
So
I'll beat your house for views.
I appreciate that. So anyway,
The Crusades of learning.
all right, let's spend a little bit of time. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about Jesus. We've been talking about being free, and we've been talking about like what does that look like in the life of a believer. Like we talked about how the right rules can set you free, and really it falls down into like loving God and loving people. What is the most dangerous thing that you've ever done?
I got a lot of things.
That's a good question.
Jumped on a horse that was completely crazy and almost
That's pretty crazy.
Brody
oh yeah, we did.
jumped on a pony when he was little, and the pony went all the way to Conway, where he climbed it and like beat.
Oh
And we
wow.
were like trailing everywhere, and some guy called us.
Oh my.
Is this your pony at Conway? And then we're like, what?
So your pony showed up in Conway.
At a gas station.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. That is pretty crazy. All right,
Yeah.
Jacob, most dangerous thing you've done?
I was tubing on the lake,
Yeah.
and me and Malia were doing like a whole bunch of like tricks, like and stuff, and then at the tail end of it, you know, tube's going like 25 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I did a backflip off the tube.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I love this count.
Usually not.
All right. Hayden, what's the most dangerous thing you've ever done?
There's something I just cannot think of it.
You're the one.
I've done a lot of
I feel
dumb
like we
stuff.
I don't know the
Oh,
count.
just
I was
dumbness.
like I beheaded at
Mine was
Braden's house.
free.
Oh yeah.
How did you almost get beheaded at
I
Braden's
ran
house?
into a metal.
He ran into the anchor that was holding down my back cage.
and it was like in the dark, and it was like that
Wait.
piece of.
It's like a metal cage.
Wait a minute, was this last year at your
It
birthday?
was last year, Christmas.
Like not this past,
Not
before. I remember hearing about that.
2019.
You like see my face when I came to church.
Yes,
It looked
yes.
like-
Yeah, I was
that's
worried
right.
about you. I remember.
Crap out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I
It was Chris beat up.
Will, most dangerous thing you've done?
I got two of them.
What?
One of them, this one time, Me and brother were taking care of animals, and I encountered a big fat snake.
Well, that wasn't
Ooh.
dangerous.
Oh, I got
Was it
And
it.
then another time, I went to
You got another
DisneyChannel.com for my transformation.
You did what?
I went to DisneyChannel.com for my transformation.
Yes, Emery.
2 times I almost stepped on a snake barefoot.
That's just not dangerous.
That's
Look,
pretty
I wasn't a
dangerous.
dangerous
I
kid.
guarantee you those weren't.
All right, Brinkley, did you say you had another one?
Yeah.
What?
I have some, but I'm only gonna give you 3.
All right, only 3.
I've already given 2.
You did with the horse and then with the pony. So all right, what's the third one? All right, y'all listen up. She's gonna tell us another time that was super dangerous. Go ahead,
We were in
Brinkley.
Montana, and I was jumping off that cliff in the water thing, like in that. Yeah, and I went face first.
Oh my gosh.
It was bad.
Oh my gosh.
Cold.
It was
Yeah,
so
it was so
cold.
cold.
Oh.
Yeah, good.
All right, Hayden.
Looked like a Ranger side by side, and like flipped it in the air.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Y'all are a lot more dangerous than I thought you.
I was going up
I was
the
racing
road.
my grandpa.
Oh my God.
I was racing my grandpa, and he tried to turn, and I was
And
going
you
like
did
really
this right
fast.
here.
I was listen, I spun on really fast, and I hit his tire, and I put him in the ditch, and it just flipped it just like that.
it on the side.
No, it made it like flip in midair. He watched it, I swear. That's my grandpa.
I almost hit a tree by sledding.
Oh, go ask.
Parker's like, he's shaking his head no.
I definitely.
Parker's like, he seems sus.
No, go ask. Go ask Ben.
Let's see.
I don't even remember.
Like I told you about the time I electrocuted myself.
yes.
I told y'all about the time I almost blew myself up with a bottle rocket.
What?
Yeah, that was Wednesday. I held onto a bottle rocket and I'm looking at it as I'm lighting it. And I just for whatever reason, I just kept holding on to it, staring at it. And then I flip out when I realize, oh, it's about to blow up. And I spin and fall because I'm spinning on gravel, holding on to this for dear life. I let go. I don't even know where it went. It went like that direction. And I got all cut up. I got burns on my clothes and everything. It was terrible. But done that. I told y'all about the time I rode down a mountain on my bike. Like it was a paved road, but it was on a mountain. And I hit my leg with the light. Yeah. Why do you think? Let me ask you. Why do you think people do dangerous things? Okay. For the memes, for the thrill of it, for the fun. All right. Okay. Now, there's dangerous things like people like to be thrill seekers and like they like to jump off of cliffs into water, sometimes head face first. You have tornado chasers. You have people that do daredevil stunts. But what about? Listen up. What about unwise choices? Like, what do you think, or what are some unwise choices that could lead people like your age into dangerous situations?
Climb a 50-foot tree and jump out of it.
Okay.
That's
Winning your
Noah,
forgetting to do an assignment.
forgetting to do an assignment. Okay. All right.
What are some
We're not gonna talk about forgetting a sign.
Y'all listen. What are some examples of unwise choices that could lead people your age into dangerous situations? Dropping out, drinking, Hammer.
arguing with your mother.
Arguing with your mother. Yeah, that usually results in death.
Yeah.
How hard is it to resist? Let me ask you, how hard is it just to resist doing something when all your friends are trying to tell you to do it?
Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard.
Depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, like, if all your friends are, just as an example, if all your friends are wanting to do something, you're going to be more than prone to want to do it too. Like, and like, for instance, what made you decide to get on like Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok? More than likely is because you started seeing some of your friends get on it. And so you wanted to be on it too.
We know people are jealous of me and Braden's 1,800 views. It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. You know, and so the thing of it is that like, you know, you think about that, and then like a lot of times when we want to do an unwise decision, it's usually because we're being talked into it, or because we see how like appealing it looks. It's kind of like that phrase, the grass is always greener on the other side. We see the other side of something that we think that we want, and we think that it's great. And you know, because think about this in terms of our faith, there are certain things that we as our faith, you know, that we should do, you know, love God and love people. And if we love God, that means we're going to focus and do the things that God would want us to do, or that's what we should do. And sometimes that means that we got to say no when our friends are wanting us to say yes to doing something, or when our own self wants to be, you know, selfish, you know, and that can cause for some problems as well. What do you think the top 3 areas in which people your age, the top 3 areas in which people your age struggle to make wise decisions? What do you think it is?
Vape and jewels.
Okay. All right. So substances. What about drugs?
Oh, yeah.
That's a substance.
Which would be a substance, right?
Just
I know a lot of kids.
Thank you so much.
Alcohol is also a
Yeah,
substance.
substance abuse.
Okay, so substances. What are other areas?
School.
Like
Probably,
procrastinating.
probably pornography.
Porn. Okay. Yeah. Would there be any other area? I mean, you could, you know, I know some people would say like, you know,
Language.
you know, language, what you say, that would definitely, you know, you guys have friends that struggle with the words that they say?
Yes.
Like they just open up their mouth and it's like the toilet just shoots out trash words. Why did you look at Brinkley and say Brinkley?
She's also a sailor. Don't worry.
No wonder why.
I doubt it.
I can't comment on that.
But yeah, I think, you know, those are some areas that, you know, I know I had friends in high school and middle school that they struggled in those areas, especially with alcohol and drugs and
Mr. Richard, one could be abused, like abusing people.
yeah, I think that could be one too. Do you guys have a friend in your group that's like the boss?
Like the mom of the group?
It's
Like,
well, not necessarily
like
a mom,
good way or a bad way?
but someone that it ends up being everything that they want to do.
No.
Actually, that has
No, I don't have that.
That's a lie.
Parker is just going.
I
Now, I'm not talking about like, you know, I'm not really necessarily talking about like boyfriend girlfriend relationships.
What's
Kylie, I don't know if you're watching or if you watch later. He wasn't talking about that. I was just saying, you know, because sometimes when we talk about relationships, that's usually what we go to. We automatically kind of default into like romance stuff, and that's not always true. But I mean, these guys over here, you can't see it, but these guys over here are testing out the physics of masks. So, but anyway, let me. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys over here. I'm going to ask you 3 over here.
Yeah.
Can you think of a time when your choices brought you too close to the edge of danger?
Depends what kind of.
All right.
Depends on.
I love how the moment I finished that question, Noah went,
broke a vase and Noah stepped on it.
oh my goodness. Oh, that would not be good.
Yeah, that sounded like.
What, like, you know, you think about it. Have you ever done something that you knew you shouldn't have done it? You weren't supposed to do it, but you did it anyway.
Yes.
What happened when you got caught?
Actually, they haven't found out yet. Oh, Brinkley. I accidentally broke my mom's favorite, reindeer for Christmas. She always did stuff. And I accidentally broke it, and she hasn't noticed a thing yet. And I put it in the back of my closet.
Oh, this is what you do?
Wait, she's gonna figure out sooner or later.
They're all sharing, for those of you that can't see, they're all sharing stories of when they got in trouble for what they did. So. All right. So let me ask you, when you got caught, yeah, just don't get caught. Don't listen to Jacob with that. That's not good advice.
It's working for me.
But listen. And I get, like, for instance, when we talked about like rules, like when we talk about rules we didn't like, how many of you hate the fact that you have a curfew?
I don't have.
No, I don't.
I hate my house. That doesn't even apply to me.
It's terrible, right? Okay. I can tell you this. All my brothers had a curfew. I did not have a curfew. This is why. I learned it had nothing to do with me being the baby. It had everything to do with the fact that I knew to make wise choices because my brothers did not make wise choices. And I'm like, okay, number one, I need to make sure that, like, I'm going to call. Yeah, Crystal's just laughing out loud. I want to make sure I call my parents if I'm going to be home late. There was only one time that I got in trouble because I came home super late. And I didn't even get, but I kind of, don't like take this, this is how it should be. I didn't get in trouble. Like, my mom was like, where were you? And I said, I told you I was hanging out with my friend James. She called my friend Jimmy, and because that was the only number I had of that, and that had James on, that she thought was James. She calls him, and he ends up actually getting in trouble because I wasn't hanging out with him, but his mom said, I think they're out in the barn because my friend Jimmy was trying to be in a rock band. And so, like, he was in his barn playing guitar, but he was also smoking. He's like smoking a cigarette, and he got in big time trouble over it, and he got grounded. And when he told me about it, when I saw him, like, work, because we worked together, I saw him about it, and I asked him. I said, he goes, dude, I got in trouble because my mom caught me smoking. And I was like, oh, and I was kind of thinking, well, you shouldn't have been smoking, but I didn't get in trouble. But any like all the girls I ever dated, they had a curfew, and that was always like terrible. I hated it. And because, like, well, no, I hated it because, like, I was always like rushing to get them home because I didn't want to get in trouble, get them in trouble. And so, yeah.
One time I was 30 minutes late from coming back from Chris's house because I didn't pay attention to the time.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Crystal, yes, she did. Crystal said I hated curfew, and so she relates to that. She hates curfew, but when you broke the rule in for whatever reason, what did you learn? Don't do it again. Don't do it again, right?
That was a bad idea.
That was a bad idea. Usually that's what it is. Now listen to me very carefully. Listen, let me say this when we're talking about rules. We're not talking about like the unjust rules, the rules that are really wrong, like you can't, for whatever, like rules that are a signal of something that's super unhealthy. We're not talking about that. But let me ask you this. Do you think a rule or boundary has ever protected you from danger?
I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, the speed.
like if you go hiking or something, there's rules to not go off the path.
Yeah. Because, like, what happens if you go off the path?
You might be dead.
You might be dead, right? And Wednesday, I shared with you guys, and if you haven't watched it, you need to go check it out just so you can see if anything else, so you can see the pictures of like the most dangerous hikes. And there's some that, like, you take one step back and you're falling down the cliff, and it's your death. But think about this, because this is the reason why, like, let's talk about curfew just a minute, because that's where a lot of you guys are at. I can tell you that, just from like because I've had friends that, like, the later it got, the poorer their choices become. And there's a lot of things that happen. And so that curfew is actually kind of meant to kind of be a protection of you, at least in part, because the later you're out, the more dangerous your decision making gets. Because, you know, and there's a lot of things you can talk about with that, but that's a rule that's meant to protect you. In fact, like when Scripture teaches us to, and I just heard this the other day, just heard it yesterday. It's and I can't remember where it's at, but it's the Scripture that says, honor your father and mother so that your days may be long. You know, this is kind of the first commandment that kind of has a promise. Honoring your parents, obeying your parents, and in doing so, you will have a good opportunity of living a long life. Their rules can be protective of us. You know, rules can help us out, and a lot of times we struggle with that, especially you guys, because you guys are kind of starting to be on your own. You guys are starting to be independent, and there is going to come a day to where your parents are not going to be the ones, you know, with the final say so in the decision-making process. There's going to be a point when it's going to be you. When you get married, it's going to be your wife who is the final one that makes the decision.
We made it.
But right now, and so you're in this phase to where you want to stretch and you want to do this, and you might feel that these rules, some of these that you got to follow, are unfair and dumb. But I can tell you, especially knowing that your parents, they're meant to be a protection for you. And there's a certain wisdom that comes from when we follow now, like, you know, I think all y'all, your parents in here are wonderful parents, loving parents, caring parents. You guys here, I dare say your home life is pretty good. And we're not talking about, like, you know, in home lives where it's not good. So let's kind of just make sure we clarify that. But, and so having said that, your parents are wanting what's best for you. They're wanting to help you and to be respectful of, and for you to grow up to be a respectful, mature, responsible person. But, you know, apart from parents, we have other boundaries that are set before us, right? Boundaries to be that God calls us to do. Like, for instance, God calls us to forgive when others, you know, forgive, and you know, regardless of if they ask for forgiveness or not. We're called to forgive people, right? We're called to love people, which is real easy. You know, it's real easy to love, like, our family. It's real easy to love our friends. It is not so easy to love that one person that we hate. It's not. Right? And there's, like, right when I said that, I guarantee you there's someone in your head right now. You know, it better not be me.
No,
I appreciate it. Oh, I hate it.
Hey, all I gotta say is the Nets blew the Lakers out.
Go Nets. It's been so long since anybody's bragged about them. But well, they got anyway, that's going away from what we're talking about. But, like, it's easy to love, and it's easy to be, you know, it's easy to do that with people that we care about. But there are people at our school that we have a hard time with. There's people that you might work with that you have a hard time with. There's people in your family that you might have a hard time with. Guess what? God calls you to the same rules. God has the same expectations for how you're going to treat them as to how you would treat your best friend. And there are moments when we want to just do what we want to do. And we don't want to do that because it requires, like, not focusing on ourselves. But let's look and see what Scripture has to say about it, about the need for us. Because, I mean, the Scripture, we know what Scripture says. Scripture says we should obey God, right? That's what we should do. Isn't that what Scripture says? So let's look at, what does Proverbs 21:29 say? Can somebody read that for me, please? Proverbs 21:29. Somebody read that, please. Read it loud, read it proud. 21:29. Because you might have a particular rule, you might have a particular boundary that you're struggling to respect, and that you're going to be more prone to want to break that versus anything else. Go ahead.
Wicked man hardens his face, but as for the upright, he establishes his way.
What does that mean? In like the Christian Standard Bible, it says that a wicked person puts on a bold face, which is like hardening their face. But the upright one considers his way. What does that mean?
Considers what?
Considers his way. Or what does it say in King James? Establishes his way. Will.
I probably think it means that wicked people do not do whatever they want regardless of God's law. While righteous people, they do what they do stuff and make sure it's in line with God's law.
Yeah, it's you know, in a wicked person, you know, they're going to want to do things. And I think you have to understand too that, you know, we all have moments where we're kind of wicked, to where we just do mean and hateful things. If you've ever been shellfish? Have you been a shell of a fish?
Yes.
I'm okay.
Yes.
There have been moments where you have been selfish, and selfish is a wicked thing. Wicked just means it just means evil. It means bad. And selfishness is a wicked thing. And so think about that. There have been times that you have been selfish and you acted on impulse, and you did something that you knew that if you shouldn't have done it. And if you had thought about it, you wouldn't have done it. And that's what the scripture is getting at. The scripture is getting at a selfish person or an evil person or someone that's just choosing to be bad. They're going to forsake everything and do what they want to do. Why? Because of it's all about them. Now, an upright person or a righteous person is going to be the one that's going to stop and think before they act. Think about this, think about when you knew about a rule that you shouldn't have done, but you were tempted to do it, but you didn't do it. What happened as a result of that? You were rewarded. What'd you say? Like something that you were tempted to do that was bad, but you chose not to do it. What happened as a result of that?
You don't get in trouble.
Don't get in trouble. What usually happens when there's something else that kind of even internally happens, maybe. What is that? When you do something you know you're not supposed to do, what is that? What usually happens when you kind of come to terms with the fact that you should have done it? I'm not talking about when you get in trouble. I'm talking about before that.
You get a cold feeling, you're like, oh wow, I really shouldn't have done that.
You ever felt guilty? Yeah. Have y'all ever felt guilty when you did something you knew was wrong?
I know, and just because you put us on the spot and ask a question, I can't tell you what that word is. Conviction. There we go.
Conviction. There you go. Yeah. I mean, how many? I know for me, when I've done stuff, or when I do stuff and I knew I shouldn't have done it, I feel extremely guilty about it. And I think that's what God is wanting to get at with us is that, look, when you choose to make an unwise choice, or when you choose to do something out of impulsivity, or when you choose to break a rule because you're tired of that rule, you're just causing yourself more harm than good. And that's why, we're called to love God and love people. If we're loving God and loving people, there's no harm that comes from that. You might say, okay, well, Richard, what if you die? Guess what? If you die because you're doing what God's calling you to do, and you die and you are a Christian, guess what? That means you get to go to heaven. So think about that. And we all, and there are areas in everybody's life here that we struggle with being obedient to God with. Maybe it is you're going through kind of the season of struggling with doing what your parents want you to do. Maybe you're struggling with obeying the school rules with mask mandates and all this stuff. Maybe, and we're not going to talk about it. We're not going to get in a discussion about it because I understand that a lot of you don't like it. But here's the thing is that, this is a rule that is not going to kill you, but you might be struggling with that, or you might be struggling with some other school type of, or you might be struggling even with like just wanting of like God calling you to do this and you want to do this. Maybe it's relationship rules that you're struggling with. Maybe it's just friendship rules that you're struggling with. But there's probably one area, maybe it's just in your own personal discipline. I don't know. But I guarantee you, because we're all human, there's an area of our life where we struggle with the boundaries that are put in before us. And I want to encourage you just to think about in those moments when you feel tempted to break that boundary. Think about all the times that you have broken that boundary and how horrible you felt because of it. Because here's the thing, when we're tempted to do something that we know we shouldn't do, it looks amazing. It looks wonderful. It looks great. And we don't, and the thing about it is we focus on what good we think it's going to be, and we fail to realize it's not going to live up to what wicked is. And even more so, we end up being in more bondage when we break that. Because sin makes you think that there's so much freedom in committing sin. It makes you think that there's a ton of freedom when the reality of it is that there is more chains because of the consequences of doing that sin, of being disobedient. So whatever the boundary is in your life, whatever the struggle is in your life, the challenge for you needs to be, how can I give this to God to where I don't try to do the danger, and whenever it's coming my way, instead of saying how far is too far, we start saying how far can I get away from it. It's like what we talked about Wednesday night. The big takeaway was that it's free people don't dance with danger. That's just the truth of it. And we're not talking about in this moment, of course, you guys know that we're not talking about like daredevil stunts. Although if you do a daredevil stunt, you definitely are not free, because you could be in a cast because you've broken every single bone in your body. I'm just saying. Okay. But what I'm getting at is that, like, the danger thing for you, whatever it is, if you and this, the moment you give into it, you start to realize how free you're not. And so when you're tempted to break that rule, when you're tempted to overstep that boundary, in those moments, pray. In those moments, back away from it. In those moments, remember the thing that happened afterwards, the how much it wasn't worth it. And that's just a challenge. And I wish I could tell you that you end up mastering it one day and it gets easy, but it doesn't. It just changes. There are still some things that, there's still moments I want to be selfish. There's still moments that I want to make it about me. That's the part of living life with Christ, is coming to balance with living what Christ calls us to live, and living as who we are. And you do get better at coping with it, but you're never perfect with it. There will always be moments. But if you set up boundaries in itself for you now, those boundaries will help you in the future. Like, for instance, with basketball or with band or baseball, what happens the more you play it or the more you practice? What happens? Better you get. Better you get. As you agree to abide by the boundaries that God has placed in your life, or as you learn to respect those boundaries, you grow into the person that God would want you to be. You grow into, hopefully through this, you grow into the person that God is calling you to be. And that's far better than anything else. So I want to encourage you, and it's okay to even admit to yourself, this rule stinks. I hate this rule. I hate curfew. Why is it I got to be up by 9 o'clock? Why can't I stay up till 10? You can voice that and say that, or I'm not, I don't think any of you go to bed at 9 o'clock anymore. But it's okay to be open and honest, and you can even talk with your parents. I would encourage you to talk with your parents in a respectful way and say, maybe you have the rule at your house, you can't play any video games until all your homework's done, or maybe you can't go hang, whatever, maybe, because I know the big thing for you guys is the rules of your parents, and you can sit and talk and be respectful. But at the end of the day, they're your parents, and what they say, you are to abide by them, because they're trying to help you be better than to be a better person in the long run. So I just want to encourage you guys with that. I want to encourage you guys, if there's something that you're struggling with, you can talk to me, you can talk to Crystal, and that's what we're here for. Y'all got any questions? Any comments, suggestions, snide remarks?
Richard, when you get famous, shout me out.
Yeah, you're gonna be holding on that for a while.
If I get famous, I'll
Anyway,
shout you out.
those of you watching on YouTube, thank you so very much. We'll see you back here Wednesday.